In this video, we'll be looking at Chapter 11, Section B, on probabilities from tabled data. Remember from the last video, in Section A, that relative frequency equals the frequency over the number of trials. And of course, we're talking about the relative frequency and the frequency of a particular outcome. And if you look at the table below, we have frequency data for a question asked to people of which type of shoe cleaner they prefer. And there are 4 companies: Shine, Bright, Cleano, and No Scuff. And we have the frequencies of their answers. Now, from this table, we can find some information. First, we can find the total number of people that answered the question simply by adding up the frequency column. And if we do that, we see that there were 80 people that answered the question. Now, once we know that number, we can find the relative frequencies of all of the other outcomes, because 80 is the number of trials, and we have the frequencies for each outcome. So all we really need to do is add another column at the end of this table. Now we can divide each of the frequencies by the total number of trials to get the relative frequencies. And for the first outcome, which is the Shine brand, we see that the relative frequency is 0.3375. Remember that relative frequencies and probabilities are expressed as decimals, not percents in most cases. And we can fill out the rest of the chart doing the same thing. So here are all the calculations, and here are all the relative frequencies. Now remember, it's very important that we check our work by adding up this column. And if we do that, and if we've rounded carefully, we should get exactly 1. And that's because we're representing 100% of the data with these relative frequencies. So that's a great check when we're doing these problems on our homework or our quizzes or tests. Now we can extend this a little bit further to answer a few questions. So if we were asked the question, what's the probability that a person likes the Bright brand? And remember, we use this notation, capital P for probability, and then the outcome within parentheses. We simply can read that value from the table, which is equal to the relative frequency. So the probability that a person likes the Bright brand is 0.275. And the probability that someone prefers Cleano, again, I can read right from the chart, is simply 0.25. Now, would we classify that this estimate is very good, or poor? I would say that it's poor because our sample size, 80, is relatively small. When we're talking about the market potential for all of these companies, it's going to be way more than 80. So to increase our accuracy here, we should always get as many samples as possible. And that is calculating relative frequencies and probabilities from a data table.